you ever wondered what death looks like, Chiaro? It's a question we all ask ourselves. What awaits us once we close our eyes forever? Whether there is an afterlife, and if so, what it looks like, we will never know. We won't know until that moment, and who knows, we might even be disappointed or pleasantly surprised. It depends on the expectations. But there are those who, during their lifetime, have managed to face death. And from that experience, they were left traumatized. And it's understandable. In some cases, death can have the face of a human being, of a person, a living person, a person who communicates with a look, with a smile, with a word, or with a simple, ordinary gesture. A terror so great as to become the personification of the grim reaper of death, indeed. This is the case of the protagonist of our monograph today, a man who became known to the general public about 30 years ago, thanks to a multi-Oscar winning film. And it is from that film that we start. Schindler's List by Steven Spielberg, a film in which our character, Amon Goethe, was played by the English actor Ralph Fiennes. Well, there is a story that circulates about that film, a story that involves a woman named Mila Feckerberg. Who was Mila? A Holocaust survivor, a survivor of torture and madness, calls a Goethe. When Mila was brought to the set to meet the actors, she also met the actress who would play her role in the film. She also met Fiennes, who was wearing the SS and Totenkopfverbände uniform, so much so that he looked incredibly similar, right? Amon Goethe? And at that moment, Mila Feckerberg began to shake uncontrollably. She was almost convulsing because she had seen in that actor, so dressed, the gaze and the smile of Amon Goethe's death. But like Amon, Goethe had become the symbol of death on earth, well beyond the skull that adorned his officer's cap. We need to go a little back in the tea. Like so many other Nazis, Goethe was an ordinary man, at least until the beginning of the 1930s, born in Vienna on December 11, 1908. And like so many other Nazis who grew up in the shadow of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The same Hitler we know was Austrian, and many other war criminals came from Austria. Goethe spent his childhood indeed in Austria. The turning point of his life came at 17, with the decision to join an anti-Semitic nationalist paramilitary group, the Einwehr, the National Guard. Austria emerged from the First World War, was a very small country, much reduced compared to the origins of the empire. The empire, among other things, no longer existed. The Habsburgs could no longer return to the throne. The fragile Austrian Republic, which we have already dealt with in other videos, was living through very turbulent days. Goethe, like other young Austrians, felt the nationalist urge within himself during the 20s, the period of the rise of fascist dictatorships, a bit all over Europe. In Austria, the Nazi Party, born precisely from those nationalist experiences, began to recruit more and more young people in the second half of the 20s, the period when Goethe leaves the Einwehr, which he judges too inactive, too dedicated to slogans and little to action, and prefers to devote himself to this new party, the Nazi Party. He's not one of the first, absolutely not. Just think that his registration number is 510,764, which means that there were already 500,000 members before him, as many as a small country like Austria. Goethe joined the Nazi Party in September 1930, and shortly after, also joined the Austrian SS. Here he is in smaller company, but Goethe is one who likes action. He also likes to throw punches as soon as possible. His problem, like that of many other Austrian Nazis, is that the Nazi Party in Austria soon becomes outlawed. It becomes so after some street riots and especially the attempt. We have already talked about it, about the coup against Austrian democracy with the killing of Chancellor Engelbert Dollfuss. From that moment, Goethe and all the others go into hiding. Some are in prison. Others, as is the case with our protagonist today, flee. He flees to Germany. Goethe doesn't want to get caught. He only comes back later. He comes back when the Anschluss arrives, when Mussolini's Italy abandons Austria to its fate, in the name of a new friendship, a new alliance with the other dictator, Hitler. And so it is Hitler himself who has a free hand to take his homeland, and annex it to the Greater German Reich. This turns into rapid promotions on the field for the Austrian Nazis. We have seen it for many of them. A bit less rapid for Amon Goethe. Perhaps he pays for the fact that in his file there is that animosity that does not always accompany brilliant careers. While other Nazis get incredible promotions, climb the hierarchy. A snap of the fingers. Goethe struggles a bit more. He is trained, he is instructed to become a team leader, to become a platoon leader, but he can't even become an officer. At the outbreak of the war, on the 1st of September 1939, Amon Goethe finds himself inside the SS Standarte, what will be the core of the future Waffen-SS. But he is not sent to the front, he stays in the rear, where he deals along with the other militiamen. A bit with security and a bit with repression. Something strange happens on March 5, 1940, when Amon Goethe suddenly finds himself enlisted in the Heer with the rank of Sergeant Unterfeldwebel. But it's a very quick transfer. Within 2 weeks, that transfer is canceled and Goethe returns to the ranks of the SS. Why? The dynamics of all this have never been exactly understood, have they? According to some scholars, that role change would have been the result of a mistake, because those who were already enrolled in the SS could only advance their careers in the SS or in the Waffen-SS, which were being formed at that time. In March 1940, they probably noticed the mistake within the offices, the enrollment of the Heer of the regular German army, and sent him back, enough to get him into Montgut of one of the Einsatzgruppen. In those death squads that, starting from June 1941, swarm behind the army groups that invade. Operation Barbarossa was Soviet, and they kill en masse. The Einsatzgruppen gather Jews, Roma, Sinti, people's commissioners, civilians who could be hostile to the German occupation, and they massacre them. Usually after forcing them to dig large pits and then hitting them with machine guns. The massacres of the Einsatzgruppen will be something revolting. Some Germans will feel shame and even nausea for all this. Others will boast about it. One of these is Goethe himself, who is so effective in his work within the Einsatzgruppen that he gets the first promotion to Untersturmführer. On July 14th, 1941, he finally officially becomes a lieutenant. His service certificate praises his qualities of obedience, punctuality, and loyalty to National Socialist ideals. All euphemisms to hide his anti-Semitism. A sentiment that Goethe has always expressed and that probably benefits him within the SS Einsatzgruppe. Goethe finds himself transferred to the general government, first to Lublin, in the summer of 1942. He joins the staff of a very powerful man within the SS, Brigade Führer Otto Globocznik, known to all as Globus, a Triestine of Slovenian ethnicity, also a former member of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, who becomes the terror of the concentration camps. Globocznik is the head of the SS police in the Polish area and is responsible for it, especially for the Krakow area. In the Krakow area, new camps are being built. Not far from there is Auschwitz and its entire complex. On the other hand, in Poland there are Belzec, Sobibor, which I have already told you about, and Treblinka, but there are others under construction. One of these is called Puashov. It's just outside of Krakow. It was built in record time in January 1943. It was built by prisoners of war and Jews, who were forced to work under very difficult conditions, under the frost, under the snow, to build the barracks, to raise the watch and guard towers, to insert barbed wire. First of all, to level. The old Jewish cemetery Puashov is built on a former burial ground. The tombstones will be used to pave the access road as the ultimate insult to a people's culture. Puashov, Goethe, with a free hand to direct the construction work, a free hand to clear the Krakow ghetto, a ghetto that is liquidated within a few days. With strong manners, the skilled workers and a few others are transferred to Puashov. All the others either get massacred on the spot, some stabbed, machine gunned, some beaten, perhaps with the butts of rifles, some torn apart by dogs, or they are loaded onto sealed trains. Unlike Auschwitz or Treblinka, where those who arrive are already destined to die, Puashov becomes hell. The prisoners who have to deal with that man realize this. A man who, in Puashov, within a year and a half, becomes the symbol of hell and death. I am your God, he tells the prisoners as soon as the camp is inaugurated in February 1943. And Goethe holds on to that definition of God, the God of death, the God capable of bestowing life, or precisely death. Because in Puashov you can die in many ways. There are no gas chambers. It's not an extermination camp. But you can die from hanging. You can die from shooting. You can die from disease or starvation. You can die from flogging. And you can die because perhaps one morning from the villa overlooking the camp on the hill, Amon Goethe decides to use the prisoners as target practice, especially the women. Goethe is a sadist. The prisoners learn his habits very quickly. If he's wearing the Tyrolean hat, does it mean he's going to kill someone that day? And then it's better not to linger in the square for the roll call. It's better to hurry up while Goethe shoulders his sniper rifle and starts shooting, first in the sand and then at them, at the prisoners. After all, the prisoners are his business. He can do whatever he wants with them. As you may have seen in the movie Schindler's List, which is quite faithful to reality, there was that industrialist Oskar Schindler, who initially, for economic reasons, then for reasons of morality, of conscience, he did everything he could to save a good part of the population of Puashov and give them hope. Goethe didn't want to give hope to anyone, not even the women who served under him, because Goethe was keen on living the good life in Puashov. He had someone to polish his boots, a cobbler who made him a new pair of shoes every week, someone to clean his house. Here are these two maids with the same name. Both were called Ellen, one Jonas Rosenzweig, the other Hirsch. They were direct witnesses to the brutalities of Amon Goethe, seeing him kill for trivial reasons and receiving his whips. Ellen Jonas Rosenzweig said as a survivor, I can tell you that we are all traumatized people. Never, never would I have believed that a human being was capable of such horror, of such atrocities. When we saw him from afar, the first time, everyone was hiding, some in the latrines, some elsewhere, wherever one could hide. I can't tell you how much people despised him. Another prisoner who became famous from the film, Poldek Pfefferberg, said when you saw Amon Goethe, you saw death. The human face of death, but not humanized, manifests itself until September 1944. When something happens, it's not about the negative course of the war for Germany. It's about Goethe himself, who, despite being promoted to a higher rank, managed to skip the corresponding rank, reaching directly to that of Hauptsturmführer, that is, captain. He ends up on trial by the same SS for theft by embezzlement. According to the law of the German state within the SS, all confiscated Jewish properties had to be administered by the Central Economic Department. Instead, Goethe, like many other officers, had appropriated goods belonging to his prisoners and had not reported them. He had enriched himself with those goods. In addition, he had also profited from the food rations within the camp and clearly had taken advantage of the female prisoners in particular. All of this had ended up in his service notes, and on September 13, 1944, the SS military police decided to arrest Hammond Goethe. In his place, a senior officer, Obersturmführer Arnold Bücher, takes over, who is no less tough than Goethe, but certainly less sadistic. And Bücher closes the camp on January 15, 1945, when the arrival of the Red Army is imminent. Goethe ends up in a military prison, then on trial. But the trial is canceled because the charges are withdrawn. Goethe is also a sick man, mentally ill. He is diagnosed with schizophrenia and physically ill with diabetes. For this reason, he is placed in a sanatorium and later in a psychiatric hospital in Bad Tölz, Bavaria. It's here that the Americans find him. In May 1945, the war is over. Schindler tried to save as many Jews as possible brought to his home. In the annexes of another factory, the factory that was supposed to produce ammunition but that in reality never produced anything. Goethe initially pretends to be an officer of the Wehrmacht and is even believed, but he is still arrested. Only later, inside a prison camp, he is recognized by one of the former inmates of Puashov. It is here that he is identified and unmasked. And from that moment, the surrender of the choirs begins. The first to claim Amon Goethe is the new government of Poland. Because most of Goethe's crimes were committed there, in Krakow, in Puashov, the Allies agree to the extradition. Goethe must be judged in Krakow. And the trial begins on August 27, 1946. It's a very quick trial. It doesn't even last 10 days. In addition to the departure of the Nazi Party, which had been declared a criminal association, the mass killings weighed heavily on Amon Goethe's criminal record. The liquidation of the ghetto, the tortures, and also the accusation of personally killing prisoners. Specifically, the public prosecution accuses him of having mutilated, tortured, and personally killed a considerable, albeit unidentified, number of people. Goethe pays for everything, pays for his whippings, pays for the mornings with the rifle on the railing of his Poisson ticket. He pays for the times he walked through the rows of prisoners with a whip in his hand, indicating who should live and who should die. He pays for the beatings inflicted on young Jews. He pays for everything, and he pays with the death penalty. It's September 13, 1946, when Amon Goethe climbs to the gallows. The executioner awaits him. The noose awaits him. There can be no forgiveness for someone like him, for someone who had decided to turn Puashov into a hell and become the god of death. He leaves behind 2 ex-wives, one of whom had also given him children who, over time, will begin to have to reprocess the paternal figure. One of them will publish his memoirs from 2002, a few years after Schindler's List. A few years after the name Goethe has become sadly known to the entire world public opinion. Monika Erdbeck, that's the daughter's name, wrote a book titled Ich muss doch meinen Vater lieben oder I must love my father. Isn't it true? In this book, Monika undertakes a sort of internal examination of conscience between the Goethe, who remembered the loving father in the family, and the diabolical figure of the Holocaust. What was relevant and combative between the 2 figures? Between the one who played, joked, laughed with his daughters and sons at home, and the one who mercilessly massacred in Puashov and elsewhere? It's a question that has been asked for a long time, also remembering Anna Arendt's maxim, the banality of evil. How much evil can reside in anyone, even the most loving or seemingly harmless and innocent person? Amon Goethe, whose smile blossomed for the last time before climbing the gallows, wanted to be death and succeeded for a year and a half of his life, causing death and suffering to Tardy. He left behind such a terrible memory that it affected the memories of the former inmates, even many decades later, as we saw in the case of Mila Pfefferberg. So it's fair to ask to what extent a human being who devotes his existence to pain, suffering, and the death of others can be called human. I ask myself the same question, and when I reread the proceedings of the Among Us trial, a shiver runs down my spine, because I still can't understand how a human being could become so damnably, obtusely, voluntarily inhuman.